We have the meeting minutes to prove it.
The July 27th, 2017 meeting of the Mashpee Conservation Commission is called to order. Is there anyone in the audience who has an item not on the agenda they'd like to bring forward, present to the commission? Can you step up to the mic and identify yourself?
Actually, Mark, you are on the post agenda. It's for completely unagenda related items.
Thanks. All right. I guess there is no one then, so you could go forward. Drew?
I didn't get a chance to review the July 13th minutes, so we'll have to table those for the first meeting in August, which I think is August 10th.
Okay.
Just a quick update on the contract with Horsley Witten for the Upper Quashnet Restoration Project. I was contacted by Horsley Witten this week, and they're just putting the final touches on a revised contract to increase the scope of work to cover the funds available from the Air Force. As you recall, the bid was around $44,000 that was selected by Horsley Witten. And then in correspondence with the Air Force, they had made it known that if we don't request all of the funding available up front through a scope of services, we may not get the entire amount. So Horsley Witten had to revise their contract scope. And once that comes in, I'll send it out to each one of the commissioners so you can see it firsthand. Some of the costs are obviously estimates at this point for the construction because you don't know which restoration scenario is going to be selected.
Mm-hmm.
And that has an effect on costs of construction. So, but once we get that, we'll send it out to everybody.
Okay.
And another update on Gooseberry Island. We did hear from town council that Gooseberry Island, the applicants were notified by the Office of Dispute Resolution from DEP that they are upholding DEP's decision to require the applicants to file a new notice of intent for a revised bridge plan. Originally, the applicants had thought that they could submit a revised plan to DEP as under the current notice of intent application, but according to DEP's revised plan policy, they have to submit a new notice of intent before the Conservation Commission for any changes in design. And so the appeal period has come and gone for that decision, and according to town council, the applicants did not appeal that decision. So I would expect that they'll come forward with a whole new notice of intent for a revised bridge design.
Okay, so now does that leave behind the concerns about whether that meeting had been
Oh, they did rule that from the Concoms that we did not get the order out within 21 days. That was part of their part of the decision.
Okay.
But because they didn't appeal, it's really kind of a moot point. So
Okay, so that issue is gone.
that issue is gone.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
If you wanted to, I could have the other agenda item is the conservation restriction for Secaucet Island. If you feel we have time for that, it's just a brief presentation, or we can hold off on that to the end of the
I think we
hearings.
should start the hearings. It
Sure.
is, I think, 6, according to that. Yeah. Calling the 6 o'clock hearing for Maurice Gottlieb, trustee, 76 Summer Sea Road. This is a proposed shrub and tree removal, pruning, and hardscape improvements project. It's an RDA. We have a representative. Please step forward and identify yourself.
Don Reynolds.
At the mic.
Thank you.
Don Reynolds for the applicant. I basically represent her, and she hasn't been there in probably 5 years now, and it's time to clean up the property and get it looking presentable.
Okay. Can you give us a brief description of the intended work?
Basically is just to take down some of the dead and obstructed trees that have grown up around, and clean the undergrowth on the road side of the property, covering it with wood chips and create a two-car parking area with either gravel or shells, as well as walkways to the two doors to the house.
Drew, we don't have the a full plan, just, that's it?
Yes. It's I can show you through, if you haven't been out to the site, this is on the, I think they call it the eyebrow section of Summersea Road. Just to show the commissioner some pictures. It's a house that hasn't been maintained in quite a while. I was out there with the applicant a couple of weeks ago, and this is a view of the home from the road, looking at the, I know this used to be the driveway area right here, and you can see all the vegetation that's kind of grown up immediately around the surrounding area of the house. So what he's looking to do, what they're looking to do, is to clear out some of this unmaintained vegetation. Just to kind of go back to the other slide, the house is roughly right in this area here, and there is a fully vegetated, non-eroding coastal bank leading to Aquay Bay. So all of this proposed work is immediately surrounding the house right here, just to kind of clear a perimeter around where brush and trees and shrubs have just kind of grown wild all around the perimeter of the house, and you've got branches growing out over the house. But it's all contained within the buffer zone to the top of the coastal bank. So there's no proposed alteration of vegetation on the bank itself. It was a plan, just kind of a rough sketch to kind of give an indication of where the vegetation that's proposed to be either pruned or removed around the house. Left photo here is just showing some of the trees flagged to be removed. These are all within the 5 to 8 feet of the side of the house, and they're growing up over the roof, as you can see in the top middle photo. Again, this is towards the backyard. The coastal bank is probably from this pine tree. Top of coastal bank is about a good 25 to 30 feet seaward of this tree. And this tree is about the extent of any kind of clearing around the home. Again, adjacent to the deck, very close to the house, with numerous branches growing out over the deck and the roof. A couple of small trees just in front of the deck in this top right photo here. These couple of small trees right here that are requested to be removed. Again, branches coming out over the deck. And then this is a view of the other side of the house, where you can just see this numerous small to medium-sized shrubs that are growing right up against the side of the house. It's really just to kind of improve access and create some space around the home, because it just wasn't maintained for literally decades. So you had a lot of vegetation just growing wild around the house. And again, all within the buffer zone, all really just to clear out any kind of hazardous materials and basically create access around the home where it used to be, but it's just kind of grown in very thickly over the years. So,
And do we have the paperwork for it? I mean,
pap-
it's in your files, or?
oh yeah, they filed a request for determination application for
Okay,
this.
I just didn't, doesn't look like I have it here. Maybe it's in the back somewhere.
We typically make copies of the project narrative and the plan. If you want copies of the application, we can supply it, but that's really what we do for the sake of the meeting, because we check the application ahead of time to make sure it's filled out
Mhm.
accurately.
Okay.
Oh, and sorry, there was another aspect of I didn't get a photo of it, but in this area back here, in the woods, there's some piled up debris that's been, it's not anything that's naturally occurring, it's just piles of cut wood and cut shrubs in this area here that you want to have removed, which I don't see any issue with.
There's reference to hardscape improvements.
Oh, the driveway here, which you'd stated, would you say gravel or?
Gravel or shells.
Just to reestablish what used to be a driveway. In this area here,
Parking area.
the whole lot is just all grown in, so this is actually what the driveway area is right here, but it's just, since nobody's lived there for quite some time, it's just all kind of grown in, and I don't think, it was never asphalt, was it? It was
No, I don't
just
think so.
dirt, a dirt
Just dirt.
driveway. Yeah. Same footprint, is that?
Oh, yeah,
It's currently, yeah.
same footprint, and just also with the gravel or shells, the two walkways to
Right.
the front door, and there's a side door, so just
There were two
paths.
pathways that cut through here, but again, this is all azalea or, forgot the name of the type of shrub that's there, but it's grown wild in this area and kind of covered up the pathway that used to go around the house this side. And then again, over here to the front door. You literally have to bushwhack your way just to get to the front door, so.
How long has it been since somebody lived there or occupied it at all?
I think it was not a permanent occupancy. It was a summer and vacation type of residence, and someone hasn't been there, I would say, at least 5 years, maybe longer.
Oh, I see.
So,
Yeah, I would recommend a negative determination. It's really just a lot of housekeeping, landscaping that hasn't been done in a while, and none of it's occurring on the coastal bank. So the performance standards for coastal bank are unaffected by all the work that's proposed here.
okay. And all of the trees you feel are appropriate to be removed?
Yeah, I mean, they're just too close to the house. I didn't see any issue with removing any of them. I think it's a good idea.
Questions?
Any questions from the commission? From the audience? Does anyone in the audience have a question or a comment?
Drew, should we mention or remind him about the ARC requirements? Okay.
Different body, different board.
Okay, we have a motion?
Move for negative determination.
Second?
Aye.
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 It's passed then for negative determination?
Thank you.
Thank you. Calling the 6:03 hearing for Francis J. Fee III and Barbara M. Fee, trustees, 11 Deans Hollow Road. This is a proposed hazardous tree removal and replacement. Step forward.
Hello, I'm Carla with Linares and Sun Landscape. I'm representing Frank and Barbara Fee. The homeowners would like us landscapers to remove 2 dead pine trees and replace the 2 dead pine trees with a native eastern red cedar.
Drew?
Pretty straightforward. I think there's some photographs included in your packet. If not, I have some slides, but.
In the back of the
color.
packet.
Easier to see in the packet, should be in the back. But you can see it's, are they pitch pines? They look like pitch pines,
Yes.
yeah. 2 pitch pines, one larger than the other, that it looked like, I don't know if it's a result of turpentine beetle or just maybe the result of the drought conditions that we've had, but the owners say the trees have been deteriorating over the last 5 years, so, and now they're just dead completely. But their proximity is right on the edge of coastal dune leading to coastal beach. And the plan is to remove both the trees and then replace these with 1 red cedar.
2
Two,
eastern.
2 eastern red cedars, which should fare a lot better in that location than the pitch pines, so I would recommend a negative determination.
Any discussion? Any questions or comments from the audience? I have a motion.
Move for negative determination.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passed. You have negative determination.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Calling the 6:06 hearing, Dwight F. Hennessy Jr. and Bartha S. Hennessy, 51 Buccaneer Way. This is a proposed hazardous tree removal and mitigation plantings with trees and shrubs.
Hi, good evening. My name is Wayne Tavares, a landscape architect and a wetland scientist. My clients, like a lot of the clients who buy new houses, are looking to improve their landscape. So they've hired me to do a landscape plan. Vista pruning is included in here, and a pathway down the embankment. It is not a coastal bank. The only area that we're working in right now that is a resource area is the outer riparian zone. So, eliminate some trees that are dangerous and close to the house. Also, the owner has some specificity about opening up the backyard to gain some more room. We're working right on the 100-foot setback from the coastal, from the BVW, and again, it's not a coastal bank. We're mitigating the tree removal with a 762 square foot perimeter bed that has native species in it. There are some larger trees. There are some trees that are deformed underneath because they don't have any sunlight and vegetation. The removal of these trees go a long way to helping with the backyard renovation. There's also a deck expansion in the back as well. And the area that's in the front, if you can see the resource area and where the 100-foot outer riparian zone goes right through the house, the front is being landscaped as well, but it's outside of your purview. So again, we're doing some vista pruning. We're doing a pathway down to the BVW. Those will require a letter from Pirates Cove Association. They meet in August. We won't do any work if you give us the permission to do that until such a letter is entered into the record. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
So what's the condition of that property now? What is back behind the house?
You've got a wooded area behind the house. Drew has pictures. Large trees. We have some 30-inch and 20-inch white pines that sort of hang over the perimeter. There's a white oak, a big white oak that is, black oak, 30 inches right next to the shed. And we'd like to remove these because of their proximity. The rest, there is a lot of deformed trees underneath as well. And as you can see, there's a fence. You can't see the fence, but there's a fence there that separated the old landscape area from the area beyond. They're trying to capture a little bit of that back area to make it a appropriate landscape area.
Drew?
Well, just to kind of go over the resource areas, because you've got several different resource areas. The first one is, this is a, go back to show you the satellite photo. This is a little branch of this is the Mashpee River, and this is a wetland that's connected to the river that's actually considered to be riverfront. This area right here, here's the property. Coastal Bank starts right around here somewhere and leads down to this wetland / riverfront. So you've got the 200-foot zone of riverfront, which you can see delineated on the plan, and then you've also got bordering vegetated wetland down here associated with riverfront, and you've got a slope criterion coastal bank also right about in this area. So all of the work is proposed. The riverfront, as you may recall, is broken up into two different zones, the inner and outer riparian zone. So the 0 to 100 is the inner, which is really considered to be, if there are no existing disturbances or conditions in those areas, to be considered no touch. The 100 to 200 foot under the Riverfront Act, there are allowances if the commission deems appropriate for various activities within that outer riparian zone. So all of the work is taking place in the outer, the 100 to 200 foot. The tree removal, deck work, and landscaping all proposed within that area. So no work is occurring on the coastal bank. No work is occurring within 100 feet of the BVW or within 50 feet of the coastal bank. So all of that is outside of those resource areas. The one thing that I did just want to make a distinction on is I know that they need permission from the homeowners association. The pathway and vista pruning are typically or almost always done under a notice of intent, and that's why I had made that distinction right off the bat, that those two features of this don't fall under an RDA. The tree clearing does, because it's in the outer riparian and outside the 50 foot to any wetland resource area. But the vista pruning, because it has to be conditioned, and you can't condition an RDA, it doesn't get recorded.
Of course.
So if the commission was to approve this plan, which I don't have any issue with as far as the tree clearing, but I would recommend that you make a distinction that it is for that only and not the vista pruning or pathway, because those need to be conditioned. They also need permission from the homeowners association to carry out those activities, because you can see the yellow line that extends all the way along these properties. This property in its entirety, the wetland and surrounding upland, is owned by the homeowners association. And they need any activity that any private residence proposes on land that doesn't belong to them, they need written permission from the landowner to conduct those activities so that you can see that the landowner has authorized them.
And we really need that before the hearing too, don't we, for this NOI?
Yeah, you would need it to at very least accompany the NOI application when it's
Right.
submitted, yeah.
And to finish that off, yeah, we have started the process with the association, which unfortunately, they meet once a year.
Oh.
Fortunately, it's in August. So when we get that permission, we'll come back here again with a notice of intent. Thank you for
Yep.
pointing that out.
Sure.
Does the proposed deck come within the 50-foot buffer?
No, not even close. It's
Okay.
probably, not even close, no. I didn't put distances from, but basically you're at the 130 foot, 140 foot of the inner riparian zone. The inner riparian zone is that heavy line that is above the brush that I shaded and hatched where the pathway intercepts. And then where, and there, and that's it. Thank you, Drew. I
Yeah.
should get one of those. And then the heavy line where the mitigation planting is, the 762 square feet, that's the 100 feet from the BVW. So actually, this is just the 100 feet. So if you look at that distance to the deck, you've got at least another 40 feet. So you're well within the outer riparian zone and not anywhere near the 100 foot. You're not in the 50. There's a lot of things going on here, so I'm
There's a lot
sorry.
of
I should
resource areas
explain
present
it.
on the
Yeah.
site.
Okay,
I guess I'm a little concerned about the scope of the tree removal. I mean, these are, I imagine they usually are pretty healthy trees, these large, good-sized white pines. And there's one tree involved in the plant scheduling that you're putting in, I guess, a
Two trees.
tupelo, or what
Yeah,
was
there's a tupelo and there's an amelancher in there, both. Two trees.
I'm sorry, what is the other tree?
Amelancher, shadblow, I'm not sure what I. In a second, let me take a look at your plan.
Sure.
Yeah, the amelanche.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
tree, yeah. I put the two trees at the bottom, and the rest are all
Gotcha.
shrubs.
All right.
If the board feels that more trees are appropriate, I think the homeowner would be.
I just have a hard time always not regretting the removal of, these are presumably pretty nice trees, these big white pines. I mean, it's unfortunate I'm just asking, do they really need to go? You've got a 20-inch one over here that seems to be well away from even the new proposed work, certainly from the house.
It's not a good-looking one. There was a lot of criteria when we went through these. By the way, they're all being they're all being cut down and the stumps left in the ground. So they're not being removed. There's no heavy equipment outside of the bucket trucks needed to take down such big trees that are so close to a house. So there's a number of trees that are on top of the house. There's a number of trees that are weak, that have grown up under the understory of these larger trees that are being pruned. Very few of these have no reason, I guess, that we're using to remove. They all have good reason. Being large, the white pines are probably 80 to 90% along their lifeline. Some of them have been undercut, the roots have been undercut, they're damaged. White pines don't respond that well to it, but I'm not going to say they're dying tomorrow. The idea is safety for the house. There's a lot of trees in that area. There's a lot of trees that are remaining as well.
Drew, did you survey the trees?
I did. And, I mean, based on their height and their proximity, and as Wayne mentioned earlier, that some of them are malformed, particularly the white pines, which can weaken them in a storm and subject them to, damage more readily than trees that are straighter growing than some of the ones in the backyard. But they're very, very tall trees, and if they were to come down, some of them, have beetle damage that I noticed. Other ones are just malformed and could potentially be a hazard to the home if they were to come down. So, and it is a very well vegetated bank overall. There's a lot of vegetation on the bank. It's pretty well treed, particularly on the coastal bank section. The trees become a little more sparse as you get closer to the home. But I think that thinning them out, you'll also open up the understory for additional growth. So I really don't see a downside to this. I think it's really just, as was mentioned, just reducing the hazard that currently exists.
Okay.
There's no structure being proposed, so it's really just kind of thinning out old growth.
Oh, wait a minute, we do have depth.
Deck, I'm sorry, yeah, but in the area of the tree clearing, there's no structure being proposed.
So you're okay with the selected trees to be removed?
Yeah.
And then the vista pruning will be handled in a subsequent NOI
Yeah,
application?
if you make a motion for this, I would just specifically mention that you're not including the vista pruning or the pathway because they don't fall under an RDA. And they haven't acquired permission yet for all of the area that those two parts of this project are expanding over.
If we had done everything, included everything under, and done this as an NOI, I know we didn't, but would that have,
No, because they don't have permission from the landowners, the association.
well, they still would require that, but,
Yeah, yeah.
but, okay.
Yep.
But it's not that, we wouldn't have the problem of the requirement for a conditioned, the RDA, or the NOI.
No, because the NOI would automatically be conditioned. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Any other questions? Are there any questions or comments from the audience? So do we have a motion?
Move for a negative determination with restricted to the tree removal only, and that the balance of the requests requires a notice of intent.
So you're including the proposed deck as, you would like to see it on an NOA?
I thought it was only the trees.
No, there's a deck expansion proposal as well.
Yes, it
But, yeah.
included that.
Just so I'm clear, your motion is to give a negative determination for the tree removal and the decks? or-
Restricted, yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. To close an issue.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll be seeing you again with that notice of intent. Thanks.
Good evening. Calling the 6:09 hearing for Michael Kuzic et al. Trustees, 42 and 46 Quail Hollow Road. Proposed additions to existing dwelling, construction of seasonal dock, installation of mitigation plantings, and beach nourishment. This is an NOI.
Good evening. My name is Dustin Wolf. I represent Artistic Grounds and the client's Michael Cusick. This project consists of combining a vacant lot and the current lot that the house sits on now, and that's already been processed and ready to move forward on that. And in doing so, we'd like to add a addition to the left side of the house, which consists of a garage, a family room living space and changing around the kitchen layout. And there's also a proposed landscape plan. We're offering some mitigation because there will be some removal necessary to put in the addition for that. And we're proposing a seasonal dock as well. And we're also proposing that on an ongoing basis, he's allowed to replenish, renourish the beach that exists currently there as necessary with the appropriate wash sand.
Drew?
So this is a property on John's Pond. This is on the northeastern side of the pond. Top left shows a view of the house, the existing home from the street. Bottom left, just off to the side, the left side of the house, facing the water, and then you can see kind of the existing conditions of where the proposed expansion area is off to the side of the home here. Mostly just kind of a mix of sand and existing turf. Is that
Yeah, a little bit of beach grass, but
Some
we're
beach
actually
grass, yeah.
proposing to add some mitigation planting to
the beach grass
stabilize
was
that, yeah.
planted because it's usually, I mean, it seems to be going pretty well there, but it's more conducive to a coastal area. And then another shot of the pond here. This is again in the area of proposed expansion and garage, looking out towards the water. So again, just another couple of shots showing the existing beachfront area, approximate location of the dock coming out right about here. Have you received any letter from Natural Heritage and Endangered Species yet?
I have not received a letter.
Okay.
We did receive back that they
That
received
they
all the
received
information.
the timing doesn't always match up
Yep.
with Natural Heritage. So what the commission has done in lieu of a letter from Natural Heritage has jurisdiction over the pond because of there are 3 different species of freshwater mussel that are under their jurisdiction. State listed threatened species of freshwater mussel. I would anticipate a letter of no take, no adverse impact to that because it's a very rocky, you can't tell from the photo, but it's a very rocky substrate out here, rocky and gravelly. Mussels, from my experience and when Natural Heritage has issued letters of take for their jurisdiction, are in sandy bottom. They don't exist where there's rocky, cobbly bottom, and that's pretty much what dominates this area. But it's always understood that if the commission renders a decision without receiving the letter from Natural Heritage, that there would be a condition that gets put into the order that says if Natural Heritage does issue a letter of take, it may alter the project, and the applicants would need to come back and alter the project based on Natural Heritage's concerns, but I don't anticipate that happening. It's based on my experience with these areas of the pond, they don't typically consider these areas to be freshwater mussel habitat, but that's understood by the, that's always a condition when we haven't received a letter. Natural Heritage has up to 30 days to make their recommendations, so it doesn't always time up with meetings. So if the commission is okay with that, that can be a condition in lieu of receiving the letter.
Okay.
Resource areas are land under water bodies and waterways associated with John's Pond. And you've also got inland bank, slope definition inland bank. Basically this area here, not across the entire property, but this mound right here does qualify as a slope criterion for inland bank leading to John's Pond. But as you can see, it's the entire property. The backyard is for the most part pre-disturbed. There's a couple of native trees back here. But what you're mostly looking at is existing turf and sand, and more sand towards the beachfront area. So everything is within the buffer zone to both the inland bank and land under water bodies and waterways, with the exception of the seasonal dock. And no other comments.
The beach nourishment, in what area is that going to be put down?
Well, the bank would be planted, part of that bank that we're seeing, we're proposing to do some mitigation planting and stabilize that bank a little bit along there. It would be in the area where you see the boat. That area gets eroded periodically from storm surge and things like that that come in and out and along the edge. And we're requesting to be able to renourish that on a biannual basis, something like that.
My concern is not so much the sandy area that is above the water line, but having you fill into the water area.
Yeah, we're not proposing to go into the pond at all. There's actually, I don't know if there's a good picture of it, Drew, but from that deck that you see on the right to the water line is all sand. It's like a sandy beach, basically.
Right, but I know if a bulldozer comes in and pushes it all down to the water and then keeps going.
Yeah, we generally don't do it with a machine.
Well, I'm, whatever, however it's done.
Yeah.
So the sand, the nourishment will, we can say, would not go into the water,
Correct.
below the water line.
Correct.
That can be a condition too.
I think so.
Yeah, sure. And another condition is, when it comes to all nourishment, is that we have required documentation that it's clean wash sand from whatever source you're getting it from.
Yep.
And that notification, prior notification to the amount and methodology of delivery
Yeah, we would
be
provide all.
submitted to the office before it takes place.
I guess, I don't see really what area you're, I mean, you haven't marked off the area you're gonna add sand to. Is that right? You don't have there's no line here or any flags on the,
The beach area on the plan is generally from that existing deck on the back of the existing house down to, prior to the water's edge. There is actually one oak tree in the middle of that area on the backyard. You can't see it in the photograph. It's between the boat and that proposed deck that is with your back facing the pond.
And they could submit a revised plan if you want to see the exact area of beach nourishment. I didn't bring that up as an issue because it's such a small amount, it's such a small area. It's a relatively, innocuous amount of sand that's being brought in to maintain it, and I don't even think it's going to be on a yearly basis. It's not like the nourishment you see on the coast,
sure.
not on that scale.
How much sand are you planning to bring in?
I would
Is
imagine
that-
it would depend on the year, but it's really just to freshen what moves around over the course of a few years for the beach. I can't, typically in the past, we've done this with like bagged sand or something like that, where it's washed and we bring it in, and it's maybe, one pallet of bagged sand, 40 bags or something like that, and we actually just spread it that way, rip the bags and spread it and rake it out that way. That's typically how we do it.
Okay. I guess, I just want to be sure that, this goes on the deed, there's going to be some kind of a limitation as to where it actually goes.
Yeah, that's
Certainly
what
not
I would-
into the water. I mean,
Right.
that would be a real issue.
Sure.
So,
We can make that a condition if you decide to approve the project. The condition would prohibit sand from being directly deposited into the water. It would also require prior notification as to the amount and location. Typically with beach nourishment, we require the advance notice and even a site visit for the first couple of years of activity so that we know exactly what's going on, where it's going, how much, and that can be put into the order of conditions.
and do I see you aren't taking down any trees for this work? Is that right?
There are a few marked trees on the plan of caliper, but we're replacing those, we're proposing to replace those with some trees. It was like a river birch, 4 white pine, and then some understory vegetation as well. The area that's hashed out in green on the landscape plan is the area we're proposing to revegetate at the
So are
conclusion
these,
of the project.
is this the location of the trees that are coming out then? They're in that area, or?
In the
not
footprint of
seeing-
the
The footprint
proposed
of the
addition.
addition, I believe there's three or four.
I only see one inside the.
Yeah, one in the actual footprint, but there's several that were, a foot or two outside of the addition.
I mean, the trees are marked on the plan, but there's no X through them. There's no indication of whether they're existing or removed. You see,
Okay.
you've got one that's obviously removed because it's in the footprint. There's no, see what I mean? You may want to submit a revised plan, just making a distinction which trees are coming out, because that plan doesn't denote anything. It just shows them.
Yeah, it looks like 2 trees would be removed.
And, I would prefer, I mean, this is one person on the commission suggesting this, we haven't voted yet on anything, that this revised plan also just have some specific indication that shows clearly what the area is that you're going to put sand down on. It shouldn't be too difficult to do that. I mean, remember, this all goes on a deed, so it should be well delineated, I think. Are there any other comments from the commission? Anything from the audience? So I'm looking for a motion that incorporates the discussion we've just had.
I move that we close an issue pending National Heritage response and revising the plan to flag the trees involved, and also definition of the area of sand planting. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think you got it
That's
all.
it.
You got it.
Need a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, did you give me the, sorry, did you give me the green cards?
I got it. Copies if you want. They came today, so
Yeah. Do you have them with you?
I have them.
Yeah, I'll take it.
You want the originals?
Yes, please. Great, thank you. So we have Mark Robinson here from the Compact of Conservation Trusts. He's here to represent the post-hearing agenda item to get the commission's endorsement for conservation restriction for a couple of properties on Secaucet Island. I do have the description. I apologize that I didn't have copies made, but Mark can come up and introduce himself and describe what he's, the properties and the endorsement request for your signatures on this proposed conservation restriction.
Hi, just identify yourself for the record, please.
Peters, resident here in Mashpee, but I'm here to represent the Native Land Conservancy. So we're an incorporated group. We have a couple of properties in Women's Center, on Sandwich.
If you'd like to lose a mic, that'd be helpful for the,
Yes, being recorded.
Just remove it.
Actually on.
I'm sorry.
It is,
Should have,
yeah.
spoken up
Oh,
sooner.
sorry.
No problem.
Thanks.
Not sure what part you didn't hear, so I'm just going to say again, my name is Ramona Peters, and live here in Mashpee. I'm the founder of the Native Land Conservancy. We incorporated in 2012, and let's see. So we have an interest in a property that we were approached by Mary Jane Louse, who has 2 pieces on Secaucet Island that sort of cross the road. Let's see. Before I introduce Mark, is there any questions about the Land Conservancy or anything?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. So as an advisor to us, we often, Mark Robinson represents us for a number of things that we do. Pretty much, it's a complicated business, Land Conservancy. So, Mark? Is it?
Thank you, Ramona. My name is Mark Robinson. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm the executive director of the Compactive Cape Cod Conservation Trust, which is a regional nonprofit organization that advises all of the nonprofit land conservation organizations throughout the Cape. And it's my honor to also work closely with the Native Land Conservancy, which is the first native-led land trust east of the Mississippi, headquartered here in Mashpee, but operating throughout eastern Massachusetts. And I'm here tonight to request the Commission's recommendation to the Selectmen and to the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs for perpetual conservation restriction on an acre of land comprised of 2 parcels, adjoining parcels, 42 and 45 Secaucet Point Road. And this is an old subdivision stretching out the point there. Mary Jane Louse is the owner, and her late husband's grandfather bought this and some other properties in the vicinity over 100 years ago as a summer cabin. And as I don't have to tell this commission, Secaucet and Monomoskoye have grown up a little bit since then. And this is really a throwback into time. The condition of this 540 square foot cabin, which is used only seasonally, there's no central heat in it. It's essentially a converted old garage on the property, is enjoyed by Ms. Louse and her family through the season. And in order to honor her late husband and his grandfather, who had such a strong connection to this property, and the peace and quiet coming down from Boston, they would like to put a conservation restriction to prevent the cabin from ever turning into some of the larger homes that we see out there in the point and around the bay. And so the mechanism is this perpetual conservation restriction, which is authorized by Chapter 184, Section 31 through 33 of the general laws. And it requires that a qualified nonprofit conservation organization or a state agency or the town hold this conservation restriction. And the restriction is reviewed by the town, recommended through the selectmen, and eventually the Secretary of Environmental Affairs would need to approve this in Boston. We've submitted a draft there for review. We're trying to get this recorded before the end of the calendar year. Ms. Louse is in her 80s. She'd like to see this accomplished as soon as possible. And an interesting feature of this conservation restriction, something we haven't really done before, and I'm very pleased to be part of it. At a date certain in the future, the land will be conveyed to the Native Land Conservancy. Essentially, I think it's 56. Is that the right date? And after the conveyance, the cabin will be torn down, along with the gazebo and the small shed, and the land restored to its native habitat. So that will probably not be a filing that any of us will hear, but our successors will. And it will be a small bit of green space, an acre at the towards the end of Secaucet, stretching from Wacoit Bay into the river. And there'll be a nice little natural area. So we will take this land back to its natural state after the family has enjoyed the use out of it through that time period. So that's written into the terms and conditions of the conservation restriction, and requires the restoration of the property to a natural state. But in the meantime, it will be used seasonally, and it's a very simple footprint on the land. So what I have tonight is a municipal certification form that the state likes to see, showing that the Conservation Commission approves of this idea, and would ask you to vote on it and to sign it and submit a copy to the Selectmen and the Secretary. and be happy to answer questions.
So what is the status of the structures then? I mean, what, is there some understood responsibility for maintaining them, or?
It's a private,
Some
it's a
particular-
private cottage. The land is private, will remain private, and used seasonally. We've written into the restriction that it can never have central heating, so there's a small wood stove there now. But the cabin is not appropriately used in the winter. It's, the wood stove is for the shoulder seasons. There's no insulation in this cabin.
Andrew?
I think this would be the only area of Secaucet Island that would be put into a CR, is that right? I don't think there's any other areas currently protected on the island, so, excuse me. I think it's great, and I think it's, certainly worth endorsing, and that caveat of the structures being removed in the future is certainly something I've never heard of before, so that's great news that that's going to happen, and the area, the fully will be restored, so it'll be a full benefit to wildlife habitat, and nice to see that it connects both sides of the island. So it's a nice connective corridor piece, and certainly something that doesn't exist on Secaucet Island right now. I think there's a small little bit of open space on the opposite side of the island. There might be association land or something like that abutting the salt marsh, but the rest of the island is almost fully developed. So I would recommend that that you would take a vote of endorsement and then sign the conservation restriction.
Okay, just so I can understand exactly how this works, so this is going to remain deeded to the family indefinitely? Is that how it's set up?
The land will remain in their ownership. This conservation restriction, it's a contract, it's an easement on the property. So the Native Land Conservancy will be responsible, making sure that the land does not become developed, and that the terms and conditions as set forth in the restriction are upheld. And there's an annual monitoring responsibility by the Native Land Conservancy.
So
Meet with the family.
they're able to check out the property, go onto the property once a year or something
Yes.
to check it?
Yes.
But you had
Nice.
mentioned that at some point, the land was hoped to be transferred from the
Yes.
Conservancy
Right.
to who?
Well,
From the
from
family
the
to the
private
Native
owner
Land
to the
Conservancy.
Conservancy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so from the current owner, right?
Yes.
That happens at the same time, that's when the structures are taken down, when it's transferred?
There's an 18-month period to make sure that the property is restored within that time frame.
But the title
Interesting.
passage is contemplated to happen when?
2056.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I'm not going to make it.
Never say never.
Well,
Not in your present form,
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
so I have this form.
I do have a couple
Yes,
questions.
I'm sorry.
What happens with the road that is, bisects the two lots?
Yeah, well, the road is obviously,
Is that a
uh,
public road or a private road?
oh, I have no idea, but whoever owns.
Secaucet is private.
It goes all the way out, so
Mhm.
the road will remain to be used by the,
Right, so the people that are
Families farther up
further
there.
out will
Yeah.
still have access.
we can't close off the road.
Mhm. And is there also a restriction from any kind of activity of any kind on this property?
It's a private residential lot.
But I mean, as far as going into, will it just be basically completely wilderness? You wouldn't be able to build on it in any way? For example, for any kind of, like, say they wanted a nature center, or would there be any building allowed on the property?
No, it was strictly be restored
Mhm.
as native habitat.
And I guess the last question I have is, the neighbors here, how does it affect for example, say someone wanting to do work next to this property, would they come to us, would, for approval? In other words, it would just be a regular conservation filing, or is there an additional filing, since it would be next to a
No, I mean, it would be under the same jurisdiction it is today. That would remain unchanged just because of the status of this.
Those are my only
Wouldn't
questions.
have any, yeah, it wouldn't have any effect. I mean, this, I think the majority of this part of the island lies within the flood zone, so it's almost all jurisdictional anyway.
What I meant was, for example, we were talking about John's Pond, and they have the heritage that you have to go to, for example.
Oh, right, yeah.
And that was my question, and would there be an additional notice?
Not because of this process, no, yeah.
So the Conservancy or the landowners would both would be abutters,
Right.
so
Yeah.
it wouldn't change.
Right, it would just be a change of a butter ownership in 2056. But, that would be the only change. There wouldn't, because of this designation, this easement wouldn't change filing or procedures in any way under the Wetlands Protection Act. It would still be, you know,
Well, the easement would continue to run with the land after 2056.
yeah.
Yes.
So removing of trash or other things that might come along, it would be the property owner's responsibility.
Yeah.
So,
I would recommend, because
Should
the
have a
Board of
vote.
Selectmen likes to have a letter from our department that says the commission has taken a formal vote of endorsement, and then you have the documents that you'll be signing at the conclusion of the meeting. But they do like to get it on record that you have formally approved or endorsed a particular presentation before you. So I would entertain a motion, and
I have a motion.
I move to approve the conservation restriction as described.
A second.
Aye, in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
So you have that municipal certification.
yeah, we'll have them sign both copies of it.
In this?
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Sounds like a great little project.
Yeah, absolutely. The meeting's about to conclude, so if there's some other business that you want to raise before the commission.
Please.
So I have copies, I happen to have the land surveyor here with me, Rob Sykes from Eastbound Land Surveying. So he actually revised the plan for you, showing the marking of the 3 trees to be removed in the sand areas. And we're looking to submit those to you.
Sure.
Great.
If that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, it was just a condition of closing and issuing that these revised plans be in receipt of the Conservation Department.
So it just became sort of an administrative issue.
You just
It's done.
took care of that, so you're all set. I mean, it was closed and issued, so it wasn't, it was, yeah,
So it's an approval on
correct, yeah.
Yeah. That is to say, I mean, Drew will take a look at what you've done, and make sure
Yeah,
it's
no,
in line with what we have. That's how that works.
You're free to leave.
Thank you.
Have some checks to sign.
Yes.
Checks.
I know you're here for one of the COCs. There's no discussion or deliberation involved with the certificates of compliance, 333 and 339 Monomoskoye, is that? Yeah, the commission, if the only time the commission gets into a discussion is if they didn't pass inspection, but they did. So you're all set. Wait, there's no vote. It just is signatures, and that's taking place now, so.
Drew? Thank you. Just
Thank
right
you.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's this? I guess it's the same thing.
Bob Sherman was here today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was under rather unfortunate circumstances. His nephew had passed away. But he did want to extend an invite to all the commissioners. August 19th is going to be a memorial dedication of Memorial Garden and Memorial Boulder for Diana Lund. She's the former secretary to the Conservation Department. I never met her. I know most of you don't know her. Bud knows her. But she and Bob Sherman, my predecessor, had worked together for a number of years. And Bob had put in a request for us to set up a donation account and with the intent of setting up a memorial garden and boulder with a plaque in the Johns Pond parking lot. We chose Johns Pond as a location because that was Diana's favorite place. It was her favorite conservation land, and she frequented it quite a bit. So August 19th, I'll have a specific time, but I'll send it out to everybody if you're available. There will just be a short dedication ceremony, and it's just inside the main entrance to the Johns Pond parking public beach parking lot. And I'll send out a reminder of the date. But you wanted to make sure, Bud, that you were made aware.
Oh, is there anything else?
Nope.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?